started about 4 years ago. And my wife and I moved from Chicago, from the west side of Chicago, and moved over here. And, you know, one of the things that I used to like to do, or I still like to do, is walk. And my daughter was a year at the time. I used to put her on my back and walk up and down the street. And I used to run down and tell Mike, I say, Mike, you know, this is who I met today. You know, I used to get a kick out of just like saying, look who was on the porch today, and telling these stories. And so I remember him asking me, would you want to do this as a job? You know, and I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. And my wife thought I was crazy, you know. And she said, yeah, I remember the first week I started knocking on doors, and I was terrified, like knocking on people's doors. And, you know, I'd get to a house, and, you know, I thought I had these questions all laid down, you know, and I just realized that they didn't work, and I started talking to people, you know. So I started asking people, what are your gifts and talents? They used to say, oh, you know, I don't have any gifts.
Yeah.
And I started figuring out, like, don't ask me that. I said, well, what do other people say about your gifts? And so they started telling me, and, you know, one of the cool things is when we start walking down the street together and start talking about people's gifts. And these things are like, people now start like, we have this kind of, I don't know, it's an unspoken contest now, where let's go see how many gifts and talents we can find. You know, dear mind, you should meet this person, you know.
Yeah.
And it's less about knocking on doors, it's like, you know, we already connected.
Yeah.
So it's us we're always super intentional about asking about people's gifts and talents. And, you know, at first, the first 6 months of doing it, I just felt so overwhelmed, you know, meeting people. And I'm like, you know, it's too many gifts and talents. What do you do with this thing?
Yeah, the cup's running over.
Yeah. You know, and I was seriously had some issues, you know. I remember talking to Mike Green about it. And, you know, one of the things that's grown, you know, thinking about how I've grown and how our friendships have developed, is that you don't do anything about it. They do something about itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I just thought one of the biggest realizations is that, you know, how I used to be very anti-institution.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like things can happen on their own, but as I start working, I start becoming the institution.
Yeah.
So how do you keep that under control?
Well, just now, you know, sometimes we all have expectations, but just kind of reminding myself, or you guys help me remind me too. It's like, oh, don't worry about it. Let's take it light, you know.
Yeah.
Let's break a rule, or, you know, let's do those type of things, I think. And it's okay to have an expectation, but also having those eyes and those ears to be able to see things beyond that expectation.
Yeah.
That's the real key. And just that, I think, I was telling my wife, I quit my job at the park, as the curator, because I really enjoy art, but I really enjoy my job. It's because it became a part of my life. I never realized that getting into this, that all the people that sit in the circle will become part of my economic structure.
Yeah.
They became part of my family, you know. We were always doing things with each other. And just our community is just like, and it can keep growing, you know.
Yeah.
And I just look forward to that.
When you are dealing with people constantly, and what's going on is you're about gifts and their gifts. What's that? You have some experience. What kind of relationships develop when that's what your focus is? I mean, I could come around and say, I'm a doctor. Do you have a bad heart? You know, or do you have bad eyes? I could be asking you about what's wrong with you. And I'm a doctor, right? That's good. But you're doing the reverse. You're not asking people about what's wrong with them. You're asking what their gifts are. That makes a different relationship than a doctor. I want you tell me what it's like.
Well, first of all, you know, after now, I always talk about, it's like I feel lonely doing it because I think people should experience what I experienced.
Yes.
The joy that we have in the conversations that we sit and have, you know, about people's gifts and talents. People don't expect, it's like, what? you asked about my gift. They think that's strange, you know.
Yeah.
They think that's the strangest thing. But the relationship there is one that just opened another door. You know, just
It's natural bonding.
it is. It's just one of those things that I mean. We still talk about what's going on. Our bills need to be paid. I'm having troubles with this. But at the end of the day, you know,
Everybody's got problems, so you.
yeah, we dealt with that. I mean, it's not depressing.
Yeah.
John, I'd argue from having gone out with you and done this a couple times too, it comes from one of equality versus one. In other words, when I ask that question,
Yeah.
it's fundamentally different than the hierarchical question of what's wrong with you. I have something that I can
fix
you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. Instead, and saying, you know, what I connect at a different level, and so
It makes
it.
people feel comfortable.
Right, it makes conversations more possible
Yeah.
than it would be, because I think we're all, especially people who have been oppressed, there is this idea that you're always on alert for the person that's coming from
Because of the
a hierarchical down, you know what I
Finger
mean?
pointing.
Yeah.
So I think it allows you to get to a more genuine conversation quicker.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I realized, I remember my grandfather always and my grandmother always talking about healing and stuff like that, and I always call my grandmother a shaman, and I think that I've become a healer in a way by being a listener.
Oh, yeah.
And
You know, listening is very important because I help out a lot of people too. For it's natural, you know, you can be whatever on drugs or whatever it is. You know, I help out a lot, you know, through art. And you know, if you want $1, tell me about your lifestyle. Tell me what happened in the 1950s and 60s, and then you know, and that way I get information and you get what you want. And it comes naturally. It comes from some of our ancestors have done that naturally. I can remember my grandmother and grandfather stopping, walking with them and talking for a long time. It's the same way she embraced kids. She's doing what she does naturally. You know, that's her genetic gene, you know, to give back and get what she learned. You know?
Why is listening healing?
yeah, I think that listening is healing because it's after all of this, we give out a lot. We always give out a lot, you know, and it's one of those things where you kind of regenerate when you can tell that story and somebody's there just to listen to you.
Some people don't realize that they have talents and they have gifts, but sometimes it takes a person to allow them to realize it. I mean, you can be so oppressed with the worries in your life that you don't even realize that you have gifts. And then when you have a person come around you and begin to tap into those gifts, then you realize, hey, I can do something other than worry about my community or sell drugs or gang bang. I can do something. I can sing, I can rap, and all of these things are positive. And then when a person takes and focus their energy on the positive things in their life, then you're not so oppressed with the negative.
Yeah.
And this is what they do, and what we're trying to do is to go around in the community and focus on what those things that you have that are positive, not the negative, because we all, even us walking through the neighborhoods, have negative. We may be put out of our homes, we don't have jobs, you know, but once we focus on the things that we can do, I think that allows you to grow. It allows you to reach out and find positive things and then to recreate your life and just make your life better.
Yeah.
Myself, I'm not working right now, but being able to come together into these groups is allowing me to come out of my home and not to worry about the water bill, the light bill, but to focus and meet new people and to let them tap into my gifts and to allow me to use them, because sometimes when you're depressed and oppressed, you don't want to, those gifts and talents, you don't want to bother with them because you're not happy.
Yeah.
Who wants to sing when they're not happy, really? You know, who wants to color or draw or do art when they're not happy? But when you find people that are dealing with the same things that you are, and they have certain gifts and talents, that helps you come out of your norm and to start surrounding and reaching and meeting with people. And
To be who you are,
Yeah.
who you're meant to be.
Yes.
Healing is that started.
And that's a healing. That's a healing.
John, it's interesting.
Healing.
I didn't believe in as much in this as I have lately. I was down with a bunch of friends I used to hang out with on Mass Avenue, which is down in part of downtown. And generally, when somebody that's a street person would walk by and want money, they would just blow them away. You know, just get away, get away, get away. And so, I also didn't want to respond by giving money at that point because it's not usually helpful. So, with this listening process, the healing part has been interesting. I just start having conversation, and it's interesting how they quit. They forget about, for a period of time, they forget about asking for what they were asking for. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
I mean, they engage in a genuine conversation because somebody is caring about it, if that makes sense. And they usually just walk away, probably baffled as to what happened.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it totally disarmed them. But for me, it was, I really engaged in the life of that person. So I go back to where Diamante, I mean, it's wouldn't you say it engages people, but it disarms them?
You know what? I got a story about disarming. Check this out. So I was going. It was me and an intern we had from LISC, and they wanted to follow me around. And my son was with me, and there was this old guy, David, and I just saw David recently. And I walked to his house, and I have dreadlocks, and he used to have my hands sagging down or whatever. And he's like, "Well, what do you want here?" He asked me, "What do you want?" And he says to me, and I was like, "Oh, sir, I'm just here, and I'm just a neighbor." And he's like, "Well, I ain't buying that," And he saw a white girl right there, and he's like, he said, "Okay, well, I want you to talk." He didn't want me to talk, he said. So I found out. He said, "Well, you look like one of those boys that was hanging out over there, and they scratched my car up. What you gonna do about that?" And I couldn't say anything. And his wife comes to the door, and David has his hand behind his back, and he's just talking. And my son just sitting there looking at me and said, "We in trouble, right?" So his wife said, "David, just give him a chance. Just give him a chance." And David said, "Okay, y'all come on in." And so we started talking. And I said, "Well, tell me a little bit about your gifts." And he told me he was one of the first black bowlers and to be in the Hall of Fame. And he started talking. He pulls his gun out of his back and he lays it down. He said, "Oh, I wasn't going to shoot you with that." And anyway, what happened was that we sat there for 2 hours and we started talking. And he started telling these stories. And he gave me a hug and said, "Man, you good people, man." And it was this where he was scarred by these young boys that he's watching every day. And, and I reminded him of them. And it was that. Well, just this weekend, David he looks 60-something. He's about 75. And he saw me at the store and he said, "Hey, man," he gave me a hug. He said, "I got cancer." And, it was interesting how he wasn't able to tell me that if we wouldn't have met me and say how I'm doing. And we had a mutual friend that we didn't know and we connected through that way. And I remember calling Mike. It's like, this work is so important, for somebody to be able to say, "I got cancer." But he told me, he said, "It's okay." Mm-hmm. He was feeling good about it. That part, then I think, I started healing at that moment, that through the work that we've been doing around here.
So you have to change your name to the Roving Therapeutic.
Well, but just
What was healing in you at that moment?
I think at that particular moment, a lot of stuff that when he told me that, I was sad because through walking and knowing people, we've lost a few people, and I just I thought that this work can be sad in that way, but David was encouraging, saying it's okay. He was like a father figure, at that moment. Like my dad, he's up in South Bend and just thinking, I don't know, just how David right there was saying, "It's okay, man, everything's going to be all right." And
He was taking care of you in a way.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was just a story about disarming,
Yeah.
but also healing in that moment.
Can I say something else real quick and then I'm gonna shut up?
No.
When you say, when we talk about people's gifts and talents, and I sing, I don't touch me like singing to someone else may touch them. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not just singing because I know how. I'm singing it because it's something that someone else needs. And you can find healing. I'm a spiritual singer. I sing gospel.
Can you sing?
If you want me to, I will. I'm not ashamed to sing. I'll sing anyway. And I'm not afraid of the mic. But anyway, I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. I sing because there's someone else out there that is listening to me. And I wasn't trying to rhyme, but that sounded
Yeah, I was
really
gonna say that.
But I find myself, people want to hear more and more. And I sing in my church, and I lost my job, as I said, and I don't feel like singing, But then when I get up and sing, and I see how people smile and how it touches and it encourages someone else, then I get out of myself and I allow my gift to do what it's supposed to do for someone else. So, just what we all do is not for us. It's for someone else. And once we realize that, we'll be all that we can be. And, and when someone needs, to see you do your art, and if they don't have money, and he does it. My sons love him. They could be gone for hours and be like, where Mara, where Tony? They down to Terry's, and I'm like, oh, okay.
But I do expect them for grades or some kind of.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to say that, and he stays on them about their grades, and he has done that ever since we've been in the neighborhood. I'll give you this, I'll do this for you, but first I want to see your report card. He always asked them, how you doing in school? And I admire that from this brother, And Diamond, he's pulling things out of me, that's been doormatted, that I didn't even realize that I could do or that I even should do. This is a challenge, because I live in this neighborhood and I've been here for 16 years, and I've never been able to go from door to door to meet who I live around.
Yeah.
Because I too wanted to be, just in my home. I don't know them. I only know certain people, but it's not for me. It's to go out and reach as many as we can. And if God gives us the strength and the direction to do it, we're going to do it. And it can't be our direction. We have to pray for direction from God. And I believe all will be well. I believe that this community is going to be a better community. It's going to be a richer community. And we're just going to do what we can to prosper it.
When you think back in your life, you said earlier, my gift is I can sing.
Mm-hmm.
When did you first think that? But a lot of people I may be able to sing, but I don't think it's a gift.
I've actually known that I can sing, and that was my gift as a little child. I have an identical twin sister. Her name is Mary, and my name is Martha. And all through our childhood, my grandfather being a minister, my mother being a Christian, we grew up in a Christian home. And every time we had visitors, my grandfather, Mary Martha, get up there and sing. We done this. We didn't want to do it. No. And we would stand up there actually laughing because people would be clapping, hallelujah, and we'd be like cracking up because we didn't know what is this? What are they clapping for, But as we got older, and she could sing, and we just knew exactly where we're going to do these runs together. It was so unique being twins. There's a connection that normal brothers and sisters don't have. It really is. And we would know how to hit these runs together, and we would just know where each other's going. She would always take the soprano, and I would always take the alto, and we would just do this thing, and we hear people hallelujah, clap, and we're sitting up there in the front of the church laughing.
Yeah.
But this is something that we've done all of our life. I've sung funerals, I've done weddings, I've done birthday parties, I've been in groups, I've been even in a secular band, and traveled and done all these things. But I've been knowing that this is what God had me to do. This is my gift, and just me using it totally is all up to me.
You know, one of the special things about our neighborhood is that our community development corporation got these statistics, right? And they always talk about, I remember hearing last week saying that, we need to bring more families here. But, just hearing her story and the things that I realized being in the houses of people, there's a lot of families. And, and the other things that, like at the schools, they say these parents don't care. Well, there's a perfect example with Parent Care. They told her that she could sing. And she's sending, our community care about our children because, Martha's sending her sons down to Terry to look at the report.
And what polls are they taking anyway?
Yeah, that's right. we go by a different poll. And those are the things that we normally don't take down on paper. But and just to think about that, and one of the things I have realized that our neighborhood don't have a lot of like families like you would like to, like people would like to see, or the CDC would like to see.
Well, they used to be.
But the thing is, their cousins, they all come to the house, or they live where they used to live, so they come migrate back to where they come from. And Terry always talk about that. But so anyway, it just was hearing that reminded me of those facts that aren't really written down.
The way they describe you isn't who you are, because they are describing you for a deficiency-oriented system. And the reason they're collecting the data is to try to get more money for services to throw into this neighborhood.
Absolutely.
It's also because it's funny, but they're looking at a set of things.
Measure.
Not even just measures, but things. This means that this is a vibrant community. These things. They're not looking at what a vibrant community is. What they're saying when they redevelop a community is, we're going to bring families in, we're going to bring
Homeowners.
together. What they're saying is what you're already uncovering, right?
Which is culture.
Which is culture, people connecting to one another, community, talking to one another, caring about one another, right? That's what makes it a successful community. Not how many houses of what type, not how many broken cars, not how the streets are. Those all are fine, but they don't have anything to do with this real sense of community. So I think it's interesting that they want to measure those things that they can get money for, or back to what you were saying. In other words, I can draw political power for, I can draw money for, I can do those things, because those are those are the tangible things that I can hold up and say, you need to give me this. The other is that's what makes a community a community.
What you're telling us about that you see, because you're listening and you're going to people and you're going in their houses.
And it was so interesting that when I go to a lot of little meetings, and they talk about things as if they actually knew it. I was like, who do you ask? name me somebody. Name me somebody. Give me somebody's name that said this.
Yeah, because I remember Reverend Mike talking about when he went to different churches and he was visiting different people, and the church members were talking about, they were talking about people being poor, and they want to be poor. And Reverend Mike said, well, have you asked, anybody wants to be poor, ask them. Who wants to be poor?
I want to be poor. Right?
But what you're like, in this sense, an artist, because what you're saying is, I see what's here. The people in the development corporation with their numbers don't see what's here, right? And that's what an artist does. An artist, I can look at something, but an artist, when they manifest it, they see much more than I do. So you're a community artist as well as a roving listener, I think, in that sense.
You would have to be. Once you start really developing your talent, have to give back. You have to have it has to be organized, you know, to really, I mean, you've got different people that are artists, but I think once you explode and once you see that you can help a few people out, you know, then you start growing. I think you should, you know, and art stays around. Art stays around when people are gone. It's a form of expression.
The other thing that people always point a finger at us and saying is that we don't hold each other, we're not accountable. But as you've heard here, is that there's a lot of accountability. We just care about something different.
Yeah.
You know, and who to say what you care about is better than what we care about.
Right.
You know, and that's
Or means more.
means more. Like they do a lot of people come over here and they say, oh, we want to do a yard cleanup. You know, most of us, we're not interested in cleaning up yards. There are some, you know, but they don't ask the gardeners to go clean up. They'll just ask anybody to do a cleanup. Nobody show up either.
And that's a difficult question to say, you know, all of a sudden when you had community culture work we had, and then all of a sudden they let the neighborhoods go down on purpose. And then how can you ask a person, you know, that probably can't afford this or that, you know, and might be artistically play the piano, you always, let's go clean up the neighborhood. Well, he might be trying to survive, or he might be this situation. And it's you know, to have people, everybody around you, you know, it's beautiful because you know, you're supposed to struggle. I think, you know, you can't be up here because God tests you all the time. But to you actually bring out and blossom like that, it's just something that's natural. It's like planting a flower. The seeds are going to grow.
I think the issue is that part of listening is also asking the right questions. You got to have the right questions to be able to come to the right answer. And I mean, sometimes the question, I remember sitting in staff meeting and we talk about these, you know, and we come to these realizations that sometimes you don't even have to physically ask the question, but in your head, bring them out. Or be around and having these conversations, create these questions. Therefore, you can ask the question, then you can be able to listen to hear the things that needs to be heard.
There are certain kinds of questions that are more powerful in your mind.
Tell us something.
Well, I think one of my favorite questions is, who do you know? That's a good question. I mean, because people always want to tell you who they know. I think also asking people about what do they actually willing to get off the couch and actually do is very powerful. You know.
The one the one you always like that I use.
Which one?
Is the one that I've started using is so what's stopping me?
It was what's stopping me. You know, the other one I think that I remember when I was with Mike in South Bend on our little survey, it was like, who besides you and God will support you in doing it? And those are some of the questions I have to ask.
Who would support you in doing
What
if you're about to do something? Who would support you?
And sometimes I'll even ask people the right moment if is it something that they're willing to teach? Because if they're willing to teach and they feel confident about that they're good.
Are you willing to teach?
It's a great question.
How to be a listener?
Yeah.
A listener,
Oh, yeah.
broken person.
Yeah.
What did you say, Judith?
And if she's willing to teach how to be a roving listener, what would be the first thing you teach someone?
Shut your mouth. No, actually.
Can I ask you a question? Okay, as a roving listener, would you tell yourself to be teachable? You know, to listen?
Well, I think to be a student, a full-time student, is you have to realize to be a good listener. You have to be a full-time student. I think I remember Mrs. Kimbrough and Mr. Kimbrough, an elderly couple that I used to walk, and I used to go over to the house, and you know, sometimes I used to think Mrs. Kimbrough talked too much, you know, because I couldn't get out of the house. I would be stuck there about 3 or 4 hours. And but I really enjoyed her too, and she was kind of cocky in a way. But one of the things that after knowing her, that I needed to sit there because it was a reflection time for me. She taught me a lot of stuff about
Patience.
Like she told me about cooking. You know, I remember going through an issue with my wife because she, you know, always said that she couldn't cook, and I thought it was hopeless for her. And I'd sit there and she'd say, "Hey, everybody can cook. You know, this is about organizing their time, so I would go tell my wife that Miss Kimbrough got this talking cookbook, and she collected recipes from people. And my wife does the same thing, you know.
Did your wife end up starting to cook?
Yeah, well, she was using the same process that Miss Kimbrough. She'd go ask people for recipes.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's one of those things that realizing that I had learned from Mr. Kimbrough that sometimes people learn their own process, they have their own process of learning things. But being there, and I realized that be open to be a student all the time.
Yeah,
That's why I was asking you the question, to be teachable, so you can always learn. And that's a good idea too, because most recipes, with our culture too, sharing recipes, you know, you learn information. It's like there's a recipe about a friendship cake, and you take and you give that person something. And also with the conversation, you share friendship and you share knowledge and stories and stuff like that. Yeah, and that's the same way with artists. You know, we share each other. Me and him share a lot of techniques. We're different, but we'll, you know, share different ideas and stuff like that. So sometimes we get along, sometimes we don't.
What are you laughing about?
No, it's just that we do.
Because I'm gonna tell you what they laughing
Let
about.
me hear his answer. Let me hear his answer.
We share a lot of information, and it's like, you know, it's like, you ever have a room full of artists working on one thing?
Sometimes it's like two women in the
It's
kitchen.
a hot mess. But you know, that's we, you know, we'll get it done, but it's like, boy, it tests the very fabric of being sometimes. But that's just the artist stuff.
Yeah, but I'm more challenging.
Yeah, but like we challenge each other.
Like two artists trying to paint on the same.
Yeah, we challenge each other to the point of
I have to be a
Of
good
actually doing
listener,
paint.
you know, at the same time too, so.
but after the end of it, so
All the ending process.
it's fine.
Yeah.
You know.
Can I ask you another question about the neighborhood, the people who live here? And think about this as your neighborhood. This is Peter Block, for those of you who haven't met him, and he's a good friend, and we're trying to write a book. And one of the things that we've done, he lives in Cincinnati, is we go around to different groups of people in different neighborhoods and talk to them. And one thing we've noticed is, we noticed when we talk to a group of people who were suburbanites,
What's a suburbanite?
really fairly well-off suburbanites,
Okay.
about their community. The more you listen to them, the more you realize that they had nothing to talk about because they didn't have it. I think we remember one woman said, "Well, I really don't know much about my neighbors. In fact, all I really know about them is what my maid tells me, the cleaning lady, because she cleans 3 other houses around here. So I know about and this is literally true. That's the closest knowledge she has of people in her community is what the cleaning lady tells her, right? So we were in another community, though, where people had a lot of relationships. And one of these people said, well, you know, we have our way here. It's interesting. We're a community. We have our way. A real community has its own way. Do you have your way?
Yes.
What is your way? Tell me about your way. What's your way here?
Form of information, it's to be broken down in different situations, from males and females to older generation and young. We have a way of changing our words for communication. We have a way, that's why you can't use ebonics with our culture, because we have a way of, she might like red and I might like blue, and we give our certain reasons, or our culture is very, very colorful at times. With, you know, it's like the earlier Italian neighborhoods or the earlier Irish neighborhoods and stuff like that. You know, it's like tribes, and then formal tribes that come together.
What are some of the languages? Hot mess, an example? I just learned something from you.
Yeah.
I've been living a hot mess all my life, but I never had a name for it.
That means yes, a hot mess. It's just hot. Yeah.
I noticed our neighborhood, my kids, and it is awful, but they use the word nigger. nigga, and I be like, you know,
As
now
affection.
we can say that to each other. My sons can call each other niggas or they friends nigga, but you can't. You know what I'm saying? That's a language that only they feel like they understand, and they're the niggas that can, you know, you can call a nigga. You
And that
know?
was the other one.
Yeah, that's, you know, I'm like, my husband, watch your mouth, and I'll be like, oh God. But, you know, now we didn't do that when we were coming up. What's up, nigga, my nigga? You know, that's a language.
It's a term of endearment.
Yes, and they embraces it in a proud way, you know. But
That's another book.
but he was wanting to know our language, you know, what we can, you know.
But we still,
You see him
we have
say
to,
that.
we have to invite all y'all to our seminar.
It's like a tribe thing with different factions and
Yeah.
with different factions and fronts and
Well, let me.
you have a certain. It's like in our neighborhood, it's built up about 10 different types of individuals. You know, and it's like each little group of people know this other group, and it's just all they're intermingled.
Yeah.
Now, like you said about the old Italian neighborhood, it's like, man, it's just like a good mix of people like up in Broadway. It's the same thing, we're just a little bit under the economic screen a little
But
bit.
can you, let's say maybe if I was an old Italian neighborhood, they'd say, we're an old Italian, we got our own way. And you'd say, well, what is it? Then they begin to tell you about the food or maybe the language or the religion or all kinds of stuff. So what will we say here? What's our way? Now you're in my neighborhood, this is our way. Let's say.
Yeah, I've been around here for a long time. My grandmother used to have a house over here on 28th and Broadway. 28th and Ruckle. And my aunt, she recently passed away. She had her house right here on 29th and Broadway there. So I've been around here for a long time, since a little kid and everything. I used to come around. So what I've learned over the years, people from around this neighborhood, I don't know. We used to tell people, you're not from around here, because everybody wanted to be from around here back when I was growing up and stuff like that. So it's just like once you was from this neighborhood, I don't care where you are, they always like, that's my neighborhood right there. He's from the hood, all that. It seemed like it's a connection from when you know people from around here, you always know them, you always love them. Like people who don't even live around here, but they grew up around here, they always come around. They always come at you. Anytime you come down the street, you'll see somebody walking down there. They be like, "Hey, Blue." They call me Blue. They be like, "Hey, Blue, how you doing?" All that. But they don't even live around here. You know what I mean?
Mike Epps, he's always come back.
Yeah, like Mike Epps.
Mike Epps is an entertainer that I also too, I knew him personally.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when people from certain neighborhoods make it with our culture because of reunification, you have to come back home to something. Our culture has to identify. Your culture can identify, but most of our culture can't. So we have to hold on to something. You know what I'm saying? It's like the old saying, a black mother can take some cornbread and feed everybody. So what we do is from words, we take something that was probably ugly, we find a better way artistically to make it acceptable among our race so we can move on.
I think one way to describe our way around here is big families. I think big families is our way. And when I mean big, it's not just limited to the household. It's other neighbors.
Who's not in your family, right?
Yeah, very well.
I would like to give, for instance, when Mike Epps, he's a movie star / comedian now, you know. Everybody like, ooh. But he comes to the neighborhood. I saw him. He parked the vehicle somewhere else, and rode a bicycle.
Yeah.
He rode a bicycle. He didn't have no gold on, and then just like he used to do.
It's very
Had a little kid bike ride down the street.
Did it for his own sake too, didn't he?
Yeah, but this how he does it.
Just so, because that was
Nobody
uncomfortable.
knows he's coming. He rides down the street on the bike and rides right up to Miss Belgium's driveway, drop the bike at the driveway, walk up and knock on the door. I saw him riding the bike past, I'm going the other way, and I'm like, that dude look just like my cat. So I ain't think nothing else about it. I went around the block, and then like I said, they sitting in the driveway, and I'm like, oh, let me stop and holler. So after a while, the whole neighborhood was out there. After about about 40 minutes.
The word got out.
Yeah.
Yeah, word gets out, everybody snapping pictures, taking autographs, you know.
He went up to 7-Eleven though, just last summer, and was passing out money to all the kids. And
Now that's what's amazing, Martha, about
yeah,
this
he just
neighborhood.
giving money out to the kids, you know.
Yeah, well, he's
It
here
was
every weekend.
amazing.
What's amazing about this neighborhood now is there was a crew, there was a film crew across the street at that park. You know, off that everybody calls the Broadway Park.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there was a Channel 8 film crew there one night. And I swear there is some telepathic way of communicating. Because I've never seen that many kids show up. I mean, I have never seen them over there. I mean, there were at least 80 children that came from everywhere.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to get on television.
Won't build
And, you know, like you just said, and so that's totally different than my culture. I mean, I don't, how do you guys know to gravitate to something?
This area right here, period.
That's what brought up the idea about the 3D Studio Max. You know, you give the studio this.
So is there a way, excuse me, go ahead.
I was just saying languages. I mean, we do use language in a different way. Languages, I mean, we have a kind of swagger to our language, you know. I mean, some of it's unspoken. If you see a TV camera, run to it. You see a police car, run from it.
If you said that one thing about the neighborhood is we have large families.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
all of that means. What would you say about the way you raise your children? What is your way in terms of how you raise your children?
Same African genetics, you know, your culture is different.
They but.
No.
Well, give some, like,
A
what is
lot
that?
of people.
Teach me about that.
A lot of people, the way that they, you know, the whole thing about it, some of the younger mothers just haven't learned how to do it yet. And
What haven't they learned?
yeah,
I disagree with that.
A lot of them have. Though.
I think one of the things that in our community, I know we pass our kids around, which is not a bad thing. You know, and you know, Terry, I'll send Keith over to you. And you know, we pass our kids around, not just saying, hey, take care of this for me, but it's this thing, we see somebody's kid, you know, hey, I saw your son over here today. You know, just like Martha was telling that story. And sometimes we don't even realize it. Martha was saying, oh, I know if he's down at Terry house, he's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they at Terry Coleman's house, she okay. You know, and that's one of the things that
Beautiful.
I
Some
get.
people haven't got to know their neighbors and nothing, so they can't send their kids over, you know, or they haven't sent their
can't
kids.
send them to
They, you know,
strangers.
and they get lost, slip through the cracks. So.
Sometimes I don't even think we recognize some of our way.
Yeah.
That's
Because we go,
You're so in it,
we
right.
go and do it, so it's hard to talk about it.
Now, when the kid isn't doing well in school, what is your way of dealing with that?
First of all, let's get back to answer this question I can answer about. It's still an African community, you know, it takes a village. We do that subconsciously because our grandparents did that. It's a part of survival, it's a part of communication.
It's our makeup, yeah.
Right, the makeup. As far as the school systems, this is how I challenge kids in school because their focus is so much on the cover by and the rest of it. And I say, look, make straight A's and they're kicking you out, you know, even if it's Miss Crabtree, act like you like them, you know what I'm saying, and try to get that information whether you like it or not, you know what I'm saying, because a lot of times they teach history and then they teach his story, you know what I'm saying, so you have to challenge that, you know, you have to challenge them that not every time they kick them out, they look like them. To me personally, the school system is designed to fail.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? They tell you, go to school and get an education. Well, that's not necessarily true. Go to school to own a community or do, you know, something bigger. So it's like the school systems automatically set up all these rules. They don't, you know, a lot of them, it's like, I'm like this about culture. When you eat a salad, you just don't eat tomatoes. And if you don't understand that and you just make some basic rules and just throw them out there and say, well, who cares about that? You know, she's done something and she did do anything. She's not going to kick them out of school. So you kick them out of school, they're out in the area.
So what do you do when kids come by and they get kicked out of school because they always go to Terry's house?
I said, I automatically tell them, I said, they're laughing at you. I said, it's going to be an opportunity where you're going to go to college and wish you went back. So I said, do me a favor. I don't care what it is. I said, communicate with that teacher. I said, I don't care if everybody's joking with her. Either pretend like you like them, but learn. Learn something. I said, study them like you study a rat or a substance who study people.
A rat? Did you say?
Go ahead.
Or, science
I know
studies.
what you mean.
I had that very thing just come up. Like recently, I don't live with my kids or nothing, but I've been trying to get back in their life and stuff like that. So, my ex-wife called me and she's like, I need you to talk to your son because I'm finna get ready to put him out of here. He's only 10 years old. She's just being funny and being mean to him. She's like, I'm just finna put him out here because he's not doing his homework and his easy work and he's not doing his homework and stuff. And I need you to talk to him. Wow, she needs me to talk to him. I've been gone for 3 years in prison. So I'm thinking, wow, well, no, this is going to be in my son's head for a while because he looks up to me, he likes me and stuff. And so I'm thinking, wow, please, Eric, don't say the wrong thing. Don't say the wrong thing. So I'm on the phone, I'm talking to him and stuff. And I just start pouring out my heart to him. I just start pouring out to him to the point that, man, look at everything I've been through, and look what I'm going through now, and look where other black men like us have been and stuff like that, and how I need him to be better than that, be better than the guy out there on the street, be better than the negativity that's looked at, that's thought of when you look at a black guy walking down the street or something, or a guy standing out on the corner, or a dude out there in the front of the liquor store lot and stuff. So I just start getting on him just like that, just talking to him and being a friend most of all. And I think that's the best way that you can be with your children. You can just be their friend, because if you put up those walls and they're scared of you and they're scared to say anything around you and all that, that just gets them away from you. And then like a week later I called and they was like, he's doing better in school and he's getting on it. He's like, well, Dad, everybody I talk to, any adult, everything, they seem so mean, so strict and everything. He said, but when I talk to you, I feel like I'm talking to a friend. And I think that's what's good.
Martha, you got kids. Talk about what you do.
Well, I have
Tell the truth. I hear that way.
I have 3 children, a daughter, which is 27. I have a 15-year-old and a 20-year-old. The 2 oldest are out of school. My 16-year-old is bigger than, I don't know, he should be,
Football team.
he's real big, real stocky. But one thing I noticed that I have a very strong bond with my boys. Now here you have a 20-year-old male and a 16-year-old male that will still get in the bed and crawl up with their mother. They still kiss me. My husband and my daughter has a problem with this. Sissy, whatever. Oh, go to your mommy. But you know what? My thing is, any black male that will still kiss their mom around anybody, the football team, their girlfriend, this is somebody that you can do something with. These are young men that have a heart and they know how to treat a woman. The relationship with my sons is much different than my daughter. My daughter and my husband, it seems like but let me do it before they try to find someone else to do it for them. Or they want to go out here and see this drug dealer and he say, man, you want some of these? Here, let me. If mama's doing it, not because you're getting straight A's all the time or you're doing what you're supposed to, I just feel like, let me give them something where they don't need to go look for it somewhere else. And my son said, let them deserve it. You know what? They may want a car. I'm not going to give them that. What is wrong with me giving them a pair of shoes? Something that I feel like I'm not going to walk around here looking like anything, and I'd be doing if I have my sons, because they're representing me. You know what I'm saying? I believe that I'm a very good mother. My children have the father and the mother in the home. They have always had that. Not that I'm bragging or anything, but I feel like they got a better chance. My husband nor I, we never smoke or drink. We didn't party. My household, I'm not saying is perfect, because we have struggles and we still have issues. But what I was brought up on is love and family and affection, and it's in me to do. And I wish that, you know, everybody could have the affection and the love that I do for my sons and my daughter and my grandkids. I have 2 grandkids also, and they rather be with me than they would be their own mother.
You know,
Can I say something? I need to say something about the bed thing, because my mother just passed in August, and by the way, I've got aunties and everybody that climbs in my mother's bed. You know what I'm saying? Because that's a part of a foundation.
Yes,
that's
it's
a part of
and
love.
it's
So
a
you-
bond.
Right. So
That's
it's
a
not
bond.
nothing
You know,
bad.
a lot of people
They do
they
that
laugh
right
about it.
after they go to TT's room,
part of what
watch TV in there with her, and y'all climb up in there, y'all just around.
But you don't see that a lot. You know, that's
well,
why.
part of what John and I are writing about, and obviously the wrong people are writing this book, is that in this culture, it's such a consumer culture, in the absence of that kind of love, we think we have to buy shoes. And when buying shoes, they think they're buying status, they think they're buying identity. They're not buying shoes, they're buying who they are. And you're saying you can find out who you are without a purchase taking place.
On the shoe thing,
And that's what I hear when you say, I want my sons to know that whatever you want in life, you
can
can't
come to
buy
mom,
it.
or then you don't have to
Or you
go,
can, or you find it through love, or you find it
Yes.
through this large family that we all are, or we pass our kids around.
Yes, exactly.
Rather than helping our kids by purchasing services, social workers,
right.
therapists. You know, you're creating an alternative to that
Yes,
kind of service
exactly.
economy.
Exactly.
You know, I got a story about an older man. And speaking of, here's another story about
Older
Joe
man
King,
looking at me, huh?
like you.
Yeah.
Joe King, he's about 73, and he grew up in this neighborhood. He grew up in the neighborhood just west of here, but he was living here for 20
Down the
years.
road.
Yeah, he runs a place called the Dirty Dozen Hunting and Fishing Club. And Joe told me a story about, he tells a story, he come to our church and he told a story about the men, his fathers. You know, he grew up in with a single mother. And Joe used to go around and he used to walk down the corner and he would see the guys fishing, and they say, hey boy, you want to kind of like be part of our club, go find the worms. So as he was going to find these worms, he learned about fishing. You know, he was a listener, and now he runs one of the top hunting and fishing clubs with a group of older black men, probably in the state. It's the only black fishing club in the state. But,
Wow.
I mean, it's one of the places you went to it, you can eat off the floor. I mean, it's one of those things. But he tells a story about his fathers were the men in the corners in the alleys.
You can actually
Sometimes they were the winos.
You can actually fish
Wow.
inside. You can fish inside this.
My fathers are the men in the corners and in the alley.
You know, another thing
Wow.
too, I want to share with you also too, as far as our community, as like tribes, with our communities, whether, you know, what side of town you're from, one thing that basically has, through drugs and stuff, have taken away some of our culture ideas, because actually on the corners was not a bad thing for our people, because that way, whether you're a fireman, whether you're a priest or whatever, you can come on those corners and exchange information, like the same way the African tribes and different tribes, and they would come together and exchange information and tell the stories. And that's one thing that's been taken out of community, where it's seen as negative. You see police officers with older guys that paid their dues, you know, and come up to what you doing, and, you know, put the dogs on them sometime or harass them in a certain kind of way. But that's the way our people used to do it. You come and hang out all day, or whatever, from your job, you know what I'm saying? And the older guys always, sometimes they dress up in their suits and look good, and they would tell these particular stories of what happened with Miss Johnson, or what's going on with today's politics, or certain songs, or certain jazz songs.
Something to be exchanged.
Yes, that was a form of communication. You know what I'm saying? What happened on the west side of town or the east side? And that right there has been, it's changed.
Yeah,
That's
used
a
to
part,
have
that's
it.
our way.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah.
there's one interesting thing that I bring up though about when you're talking about this community. There's something that's not that unusual and yet very unusual. And I'll relate the story. I had Jimon and you guys, we were at, and Terry, we were all at Terry Coleman's.
Oh.
And when I left, I had a flat tire. And I've only been at this church for a couple months when I was there. Had not been in this community in years. And the community came out and helped me change my tire. Now, that's not cultural. I mean, you can talk about all cultural things and that those are important, but that wasn't cultural. That was community. You know what I mean? I mean, that wasn't, do you know what I mean? I had connected with some people who cared about me and I cared about them. And through those connections of caring, there was community. And I walked away, and I've been telling that story ever since because it was pretty amazing to me that I had how long an interaction and I had a community. And how people that feel down on a neighborhood or a particular area and they say there isn't a community, then haven't really tried to be a part of the community. I can't be a part of the culture, but I can be a part of the community. You know what I'm talking about? So community and culture, I think, Peter, when you're asking those, are very different things. I mean, I think we've gone into a cultural discussion, but if you really want to know what community is, I'm trying to give you, to reveal that community is more than the culture.
You don't have to be a member of the tribe to experience community.
You didn't be part of the culture, and I can't understand gathering on a street corner and having the police bother me.
Right.
Although I could, in this neighborhood, stand on a street corner and have them bother me, but my point is I can never be a part of understanding the culture. I can listen to the culture, but I can be a part of the community, and that I guess that's what I'm saying is you've got a couple levels here that you've got to unpack. But one of the things I think the Broadway story is about is building community, not about building culture.
And that's what they do.
And so culture's in there, but it's up to the community to preserve the culture, preserve its culture. But there is a bigger thing
about this church. Now here you've got this huge building and everything. Why are you in this church?
That's what I was going to talk about earlier. I bet you everybody from around here, I bet you they got a story about either this church Broadway here or that church Tab up there, or it's another church right there on 34th and Park. Either way, somehow I bet you this church has touched their lives, and that's probably one of the main factors why people are together. That's one of the main things that has brought this community together. It's the good people here over here at this church.
This church?
Yes.
What's unique about this church?
I'll tell you that too. When we say the community, we don't have a community. In the 90s, we had a community. We don't have a community. We got neighborhoods. So we have to. Right now, we're getting back a community. And for us, the Broadway Church, this church here, they've always had things here for whether they used to have small parades here. Tab, there's a thing, everybody played football and stuff like that. It's a part of our history. It's the only thing we had. So
They had the free lunches, the basketball team.
Sure, for the kids.
The youth group.
Can I say something?
Thank you.
I'll keep on talking, but that's all right.
You're going to have to sing sooner or later.
I live actually right across the street, less than 2 minutes from a church.
Mm-hmm.
And this church utilized me in the community more. I'd rather be here than there because I tell Pastor Mike and all, this is I belong to a church, but this is my church too. I have two churches, so I'm very special. But I've been living, like I said, 16 years. And here I am living diagonal from a church and has never been utilized.
What does that mean? In what ways have you been utilized?
Here, yeah. I've met so many people. I didn't even know them until I began to come here. And here are my neighbors. I have a neighbor that lived right across the street from me, Terry. She left, Terry Coleman. I didn't know her until I began to be utilized here. And she's right across the street. My gifts, No one knew I could sing until I was utilized here in this church.
It's beautiful.
So when I say, I mean, this is a special place to be. This is
church needed
where you
you.
want to be.
It needed you, didn't
I needed them.
And the other
I needed
friends.
them. I needed them.
We had a conversation this week with, Mike and I have been interested in Binyavanga, Wainona, his work. He's an African writer. He's now in the United States, but we had heard him a small piece of his on NPR. And we asked him about, because he talks about aid and charity. And so we had a conversation with him about his writings, which were, saying, I'd much rather you didn't give aid because the aid you give isn't enabling. But we asked him, well, what about this community, the church here? And we had this great conversation, and this is just exactly what you're saying, Martha. And he said, well, you know what? You somehow have the concept of parish. The old idea of a Catholic parish. In other words, you may not have done everything right, but you haven't done anything bad. In other words, you haven't done anything bad enough, right? To other things have failed the community, right? But in your attempting to do good, you may not have done all you could have done, right? But in your attempting to do good, you've established yourself as a part of the community. Just in the same way that a Catholic parish was a part. It's not about converting people. It's not about bringing them in. It's not. You've been a part of it. And I agree with you that I grew up at Tabernacle, playing with many of that's the first time with me, we've had that conversation about that I grew up in the generation of where we were in civil rights. And so it was the first interactions I had with anybody who was black was through the programs in these churches, right? That were sports programs or whatever they were the first kinds of things where we came to know each other around something else. So that's back to Eric's thing. They were a part of all of our lives, those of us who lived around here. And so when they haven't ever left, and I loved his comment, you've never done anything bad enough.
There's still time.
In doing your good, but in doing good, in giving charity, you've never done anything bad.
Yeah.
Horrendous.
The bad is to be charitable, to look down, see these people not to be utilized, but to be helped.
Mike always says, stop helping people.
Exactly.
And one of the things that I think that
he's right
in trouble for that all the time. But so we stopped helping people. I remember when we started talking about doing away with our food pantry, right? And Mike said, well, we're not going to do this food pantry anymore. And everybody's like, what? People need food. And he said, who says, how do you know somebody hungry? He said, man, I don't see anybody starving. Name somebody. I don't see anybody starving around here.
That's good.
But we made this, what we transitioned to, we made this commitment into listening. Into actually having a conversation, actually building a real relationship. So I just thought that stop helping people was what makes us special. We value us folks.
We're going to feed them or listen to them? Let's listen to them. It's a greater form of love.
Yeah, people don't live on bread alone.
Speaking of feeding people and listening to people, I just wanted to let you all know that dinner is being served downstairs. Not to interrupt the conversation, but
Could we have just one song of the Spirit?
Yes.
Well, let me add also, you haven't said any, could you say something about anything going through your mind?
I'm just listening to everybody.
She's a Roman listener.
What have you?
She's in training. She's in training.
Yeah, I want to know listener right
She's in training.
Anything you've heard?
She's my intern.
Anything you've heard that would stay with you?
Huh?
Anything you've heard that struck you or would stay with you?
Just about everything, because I grew up around this area too, so I've been through it all, heard it all, so.
Thanks.
Yeah. No, I don't do too much talking. So.
She's shy.
Please.
You really want me to sing?
Of course we do.
What song are you going to sing? Tell us about it.
Listen. Why should I feel discouraged? And why should the shadows come? And why should my heart feel lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, a constant friend is he. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I sing because I'm happy, and I sing because the Lord has set me free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know, and I know, and I know he watches me.
Thank you.
Wow.